Today, my dear guest is Radek Wiejek, project manager, leader of Force of Nature EU team inside of our organization. And what to say about Radek? Man of many talents, including, from my perspective at least, perfect communication with clients and friends as well. Man that is very fluent with spreadsheets and also with experience in programmatic campaigns as well, and a heavy metal guitarist in his private time. Welcome, Radek. Happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to finally be here and sit across you and have this conversation. Yeah, let's do it. Thank you so much for this very generous introduction. I hope I will deliver.
You will certainly. Okay, so today our main topic will be project management from the perspective of a man that has experience managing projects from digital marketing, but I think that not only digital marketing across Europe, Poland including, but also in other countries. And the most interesting thing is you managing US projects, not only at MTA, but you also have experience from your past job. So let's start from the beginning, because I remember that several years ago, I was actually a part of the recruitment team.
That's right.
That recruited you to MTA. And I remember you did not have that much of a digital marketing experience as a media buyer, at least. But you had many complementary skills and we were charmed by them, including spreadsheets, but also your English, your communication skills. So how did you end up here sitting with me, talking about project management, including European and American projects?
That's right. So that experience goes back to 2017. I can name the company, right?
Sure.
If I want. So that was Fandom. So I worked on the publisher side. That means that we trafficked ads on the communities on fandom pages. So basically, thematic Wikipedias, so to speak.
That's a pretty huge portal.
Yeah, it's pretty huge. Yeah, and you have a lot of inventory, right? So we did have quite a few big contracts where we trafficked a lot of ads and huge campaigns. So we could say that like we were our own Google in that respect. So as to like visualize it to anyone, but it's still a bit different from being on the buyer side. So there was some sort of cross pollination of experience, let's say, but still it was pretty different. But to answer your question, how I ended up here, from my perspective, is that MTA seduced me, so to speak, and you as well, because like you said, sure, you did take part in that process, because basically the company values and what we speak a lot about, how we want to connect our private, maybe not connect, but to have that balance between private lives and between working, and that everyone has a voice and all the teal mentality that stands behind it. That was like really, really enticing to me. But from, I think, your perspective and perspective of the company, I think that it is, and that may sound a little less humble than I would like it to be, but yeah, let's go with it. I think that this is a sign of a good recruitment process, that even though on paper I might not have had the sprawling experience in all the, let's say, hard skills that are required for the job, and let's remind ourselves that I started as the Google Ads specialist, right? Yeah. So it didn't have a lot to do with project management or anything of that sort on paper. But I think that this is a testament of a good recruitment process, that you can look past the hard skills that are on paper, but as you said, that you can look at the qualities that a person brings to the table, and maybe not the immediate skills, but also the potential of someone that can move into a different role, can take on more responsibility, that shows that drive and potential.
Yeah, that was definitely a thing back then. But like moving forward from your recruitment and to present day. So as you said, you were recruited to be a Google Ads specialist, but we also had this capacity within programmatic area. And this is something that you were kind of specialized back in the day. But how did you exactly wind up in the US team, and how did you end up being a team leader of this team? And how did you move to this from being a media buyer to being a project manager there?
All right. Well, again, it is a testament to how the organization works, really. That I speak with full honesty right now. That I think this is a really huge advantage of how we work. That is that if you have the skills and the willingness to take on more responsibility, to move into a different area and have more stuff on your plate, then if you deliver on that, then you can do that. And basically, I think that I joined in a very, very opportune moment. At a very opportune moment to go into that area, because the Force of Nature team, so the team that is specialized in dealing with American clients, was in its infancy pretty much. And there was a lot to take on, a lot to manage in that team to make it work at that time and to bring it to another level, which hopefully is happening right now. So I joined at that moment and my skills were needed then. So, I recognized that, and people on the team recognized that. So basically, it happened really naturally.
Mm-hmm. So there was an opportunity to take, and you took it, basically.
Yeah, okay. Pretty much. So, well, maybe not an opportunity, but yeah, you can say that. But in my mind, how I look at it is that there's an analogy that one of our colleagues, Mati, uses. Is that when you walk down the street and you see that there's litter on the street, that you need to pick it up, right? But you feel that you need to pick it up. Mm-hmm. So basically, that's sort of my way of thinking about things, is that I see that there are things that need to be done, and maybe not everyone wants to do them. So I say, yeah, screw it. Let's go. Let's go. Yeah. Because I was that person on every university courses or lessons that when there was a deafening silence, I felt it, and I knew that people like, yeah, Radek's gonna talk, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
he's a guy.
Yeah, I was that person.
Okay, that's actually very good, and we'll start from my main point of interest, because I also have some experience dealing with Polish, European, American clients, but I think from a management perspective and communication style, we can think about several differences between these cultures. So what would you say is the main difference between a marketing project in the EU and the US?
All right, so let me preface this with one paragraph, let's say, is that however we're going to speak about this is all going to be a generalization of sorts, Sure. It also depends on the level of it. But I've met a lot of smart, skilled, and capable people in marketing on both sides of the pond, right? And also not so smart sometimes, and not so capable, not so skilled people on both sides of the pond, right? So we can speak to some general differences, but I believe that it always sort of does differ on a case-by-case basis, right? So also like a disclaimer, right? So we're not saying that not all Americans and not all Europeans, right?
Don't take it too seriously, but
yeah, exactly.
I mean, surely even in our country, you can see different types of people in marketing, in other industries. So yeah, that's definitely a generalization, but still there are some things visible on the first sight.
Sure. Well, I have a couple of notes in the book. I came prepared, but I don't have a one big difference in mind. So I have a couple of them, so I can go through them. And the first thing from a practical point of view, which is might not be something that a lot of people think about, is that Americans have fewer holidays.
Yeah, that's main topic of many events that we have calls.
Yeah.
Like, how are you dealing with so many holidays in Poland? Like, how is it possible? That's the main question.
Yeah, because even like when you look at the calendar, the national holidays, we have way more than the Americans, right? And so that's the first thing. And also like paid leave or paid time off does work differently in most American companies, and they most of the time have fewer days.
Okay.
So sometimes they are like a little bit surprised that we have so much and we get stuff done, right? But, you know, maybe that sort of goes back to the Puritan way of working, right? And thinking that, you know, your work is the most noble thing you can do in your life, right? So,
okay.
So that's the sort of the practical aspect, let's say. And what also goes into it is that sort of service mentality. And I have an analogy here, like an anecdote, because I remember that I saw like I think it was a YouTube video about differences between servers in restaurants between Europe and America. And that's there was one guy. It was an American guy who visited Poland, and he basically said that, oh, you know, the service was all right. The person came to my table, gave me food and whatnot, and then they came back to ask if everything's okay, and then they took the cash, and that was cool. But you know, it's okay, but it's not the level of service that I need. And there were some comments from viewers from Europe who said that, but you know, this is what a lot of us actually expect, you know, because we come there to have a conversation with someone, to have a good meal, and we don't expect someone to like come in every 5 minutes and ask us how we're doing, right? We sort of want to keep it more, let's say, private, and, you know, don't bother me, basically. Whereas Americans, a lot of the time, they like to be treated that way, that, you know, that's that they feel more taken care of, right? So from that mentality point of view, I think that this is something that also shows up in agency work too, that that they sort of expect that a little bit, to be treated that you know, it may sound trite, but up to a certain degree, they want to feel like they are your most important client, right?
Okay. Every one of them, no matter the service.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I think that we can all relate to how we handle service, no matter what sort of service it is. But so, what does it mean in the terms of like digital marketing service? So, being there on chat or other channel of communication, like basically what, maybe not all the time, but there after 1 hour maybe or something, or maybe be proactive all the time. What counts into that?
Okay. I think that the most important aspect of that, and like the one that first pops into my mind, is that you basically have to communicate pretty much everything. Because like, and we're also going to talk about differences between agencies, right? Later on. Spoiler alert, yeah. But what I noticed is that we, a lot of the time, have the slider between working and communicating way into the working area, right? So that we don't really like to talk a lot about what we do, because of maybe because of our humility or something like that, or that we prefer to act. Whereas because it's sort of like a given for us that, you know, you get a task, you do it, and maybe after it you communicate that, you know, we did it, you know, it's done, it's fine, done, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, next. But in working with American clients, I noticed that they really appreciate, and many times even require you to communicate even at that earlier process, saying that, okay, yeah, we got your message, we see it, we're on it, we're going to work on it, right? And then we will come back to you when it's done, right?
So it's not just a matter of assigning a task to someone and expect it to be done in a few days or by the due date, but also like a simple message about, okay, took care of it. We'll do
Or we are taking care of it.
Okay. We'll do it by X days. In the meantime, we are doing this and that. And by the end of it, like a quick summary of what happened.
Yeah.
Okay. So it may sound weird to some of us Europeans to make it that way. Actually, I agree. Interesting. So, would you say that this is mainly also, it's more about the style of communication instead of like, what's actually done? So these, results side, would you say it's pretty much the same, for Europeans and Americans? Like expectancies, maybe what's there to be achieved? Would you say that, I don't know, maybe Americans tend to be more ambitious in terms of setting goals compared to Europeans, or maybe the other way?
Yes, I would think so. Yeah, I would think so. Maybe ambitious is not maybe the right word, but I think that the proximity, let's say, of Silicon Valley and, you know, that mentality and sort of also like the Puritan aspect, like I also mentioned, that's sort of pretty much still alive in the culture. And the sort of startup mentality that maybe is not present everywhere, but sort of is present there, like permeates through, you know, through different companies. So I think that sometimes they may be too ambitious and, like, you know, overshoot their goals, but still pretty much everyone dreams big in America, right? Because, you know, it's the American dream. Yeah, it's the American dream. It's, you know, bootstrapping and all that stuff. But I think it sort of comes up in that they set ambitious goals, right? And it may sound silly to us sometimes, but like at the highest levels that we maybe sometimes are not privy to conversations with, like with the C-level, I've heard a couple of times from a couple of different clients questions, you know, how can I 10x my business in this year? How can I do it? Right.
Give me.
So, like, give me. Yeah. So there's this mentality, right? That you shoot big and maybe sometimes you overshoot, but you have that ambition to go there.
So maybe even the perspective is different, because I think that most of us Europeans tend to think about shorter goals, like something's not working and it definitely should. And our expectancies are this metric higher in X%. But so what? Americans tend to think about this vision, this story behind it, and tell me about it, how to do that for my company.
Yeah, actually, you mentioned two very important things. So the first thing is that whatever you speak about, and you can talk about like very little things, like, you know, CPA on a given campaign, or
Simple one, yeah.
or a CTR or something, or a performance of one specific campaign. But what they like to do is to have all of that referenced in some way to the higher overarching goal. And basically that was also one of the things that we did learn during the course of our, you know, working, refining how we communicate, how we do things. And that came a very long way to actually have that. And, you know, even down from, like, let's say, like, you know, the more nebulous way of talking about it, basically talking about it on meetings, but also to like how we built agendas for meetings, is that everything has that connection to the higher goal. So basically you can say that, okay, this campaign is doing well. And as a specialist, you feel, okay, that's my job is done. It's cool. Yeah. But, you know, you will get a question then many times. You can get that question. Okay, but how does that relate to my goal? I want to scale my company, maybe not 10x, right? But maybe I want to grow 40% in this year. I want to sell X more. So how that does relate to that, how that brings me closer to that goal as a client. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, you mentioned the storytelling, and that's big. And I think that, you know, so thank you for that, because I think that this may be like the biggest thing. And that's a difference between these two markets, is that story really is king. And I think it shows in pretty much every aspect, like from the meetings, when there's a relationship between the client and an agency, or whether it's sales or any other conversation, is that there needs to be a story there. Because I think that we really had it down to a science to speak about metrics, speak about charts, and, talk about results and all that sort of in isolation. Pretty much what I mentioned before is that you want to connect everything to the higher goal. But then again, coming, even like a step further, is that all of these sometimes disparate elements, you want to connect them together too. So to have that story. And that's, I think it's pretty difficult, and it requires very high communication skills, and also to sort of sometimes look at things in a more abstract way, because
how to put it into this interesting perspective that it's not just boring stuff from like achieving goal X, Y, Z, but also about like maybe how we've done it for some other company, or where they were when we were starting the project, and how did they end up after meeting these goals with us. So would you say that it's like from our internal like beings, in terms of the culture, maybe that we are more straightforward, like even on a regular basis in our projects? Would you say that it's more about the specific person, or is it just us Europeans, well, maybe Polish, that we tend to like give reports like, we've done optimization of that, new ad copy, blah, blah, blah. While the most interesting stuff is, okay, what about this one main goal behind it? So how this, would you say that this is us by culture, or this is more about a specific human being?
It might be both, I think, to a certain degree. So I think that some of it comes from that storytelling aspect. So that like we like to get to the point as Europeans, right? Like you said, this is this, but they want to have like an overarching story, like I mentioned. So that's the first thing. And second thing is, that I do believe that we might be a little bit more straightforward, and sort of, laying our cards on the table more willingly sometimes, because, it's a stereotypical thing to say it, but I think that it sort of shows a little bit about it, and that we are a lot of the time stifled by the stereotypical "how are you" question, right?
Yeah,
because it's not direct, it's not literal. Nobody cares how you are doing. Nobody cares.
It's really weird, by the way. I'm getting used to it, but right now when I'm hearing this question, I tend to say, "Oh, good, it's fine. How are you?"
Yeah.
It still sounds weird from my inner myself, that it's just, I would like to tell you more, but I know it's not about that.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So that is a little bit weird, and for us, and I think that it might show a little bit of that like the broader thing here is that we sort of get to the point, but at the same time, because you mentioned like this double aspect of that, whether it's a specific person or everyone. And I also noticed that from working with a couple of different clients, is that some of them like really, really appreciate that directness and appreciate that being straightforward. And I noticed that those are, again, generalizing here, people who know more about marketing and about business, and like they have specific goals that are realistic and they want to get there, and they have this like no BS attitude about it. And then they appreciate that sometimes you are straightforward, direct, that you are direct with, for example, some external partners, and you can call them out on their BS, right? So if you have a really good conscious partner in this relationship, it goes really long way.
So it's maybe about the acceptance of who we are, actually. I don't know if everyone does that, but maybe it's just about us accepting their point of view and perspective about hearing the story and learning towards making it more interesting to them. But also maybe Americans tend to like accept it that we are more straightforward and tend to think about business goals in a way of metrics and okay, that's done. So, okay, that's also a good thing that they are like that, because our meetings are something like combination of both good sides from each side, basically.
Yeah, I think it makes us better because there's this quote that's been attributed to Einstein. I don't know if that's true. Because like you shouldn't believe anything that's on the internet, right? Mm-hmm. But there's this quote that's attributed to him is that if you cannot explain something in simple terms, it means that you don't really know it well.
Yeah.
And I really believe that. I think it's really true, because sometimes even when when I was studying, I majored in English, and as you know, every English major, I did work in teaching, after hours, right? So I did that for some time, and I really noticed it that when I wasn't able to explain something in simple terms, it meant that I didn't really understand. I didn't really grasp the entire concept. So I do really think that it makes us better, because if we have that ability to build it into a cohesive story, it means that we really understand it better, anything that we're talking about, and we are more able to defend it and have arguments against that, right? So another difference that's maybe like, because, again, I did like expose myself, right? That I'm an English major, so I also look at the linguistic differences, and that you can even see it in American TV shows or American television, is that they love analogies and metaphors. Mm-hmm. And one example that comes to my mind, and it might be a boomer reference, but you watched House MD, the TV show. One
of my favorites.
Yeah, I love it too, right? And so they have a lot of metaphors and analogies about when speaking about something. Yeah. Mostly it's either sports or cars, right?
Yeah. It was actually House himself explaining a condition. So let's imagine this and that, and then it goes that way. Yeah, that's actually true. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and they love that. And I think that it makes a lot of sense, because then you make a thing more relatable to you, because a lot of the times we speak about pretty abstract things, because, you cannot touch CTR. You cannot, listen to CPA, right? Mm-hmm. So this sort of helps to bring it closer to people.
You should be able to explain something like to a 5-year child or something, or someone. So basically, on a very simple level, even though it's maybe a very complex topic.
Yeah, exactly. Explain it to me like I'm 5, right? Yeah, as they say.
Precisely.
Can I go on a little bit? Because I have another thought popped into my mind.
Maybe analogy.
No, sadly no. I will try it. It's in my secondary RAM. I will try to think about some analogy.
Sure.
But I think that this sort of this way of telling a story, and like I mentioned, like arguing things, I think it sort of might also come from the differences in the education system. Mm-hmm. Because like writing theses, like in Polish we do it a little bit as well, the rozprawka, which is like basically like a thesis, like a small one, but it's way bigger in America. And that's on the one hand, and on the other hand, like they have way more speeches that they give.
Wow.
And that's something that I had in university when I was studying English. And even before that. So I think that will teach them a little bit better to have that, because you have that sort of structure drilled into your brain way earlier than we do. Mm-hmm. That you present your thesis, what you want to talk about, then you give arguments, then you think about possible counter arguments and like how you can refute them. And then you come back to the thesis statement saying that, as a sort of conclusion, right? Summarizing everything. So I think that they come we can say a lot of bad things about American education, and but I think that this aspect really works in their favor, and it kind of shows that they have this way broader experience in thinking about things this way, and sort of learning to argue your point in that structured manner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember, like, I think that you do as well. Being in a high school or college, university, every speech that you had to make alone or with a team, it was extremely stressful experience, even though you were a grown-up, an adult that is supposed to know how to speak about something. It was extremely stressful and making nervous. And I truly think that I've learned it on a proper way like 5 years ago when I was joining MTA, because it was the moment that I really needed to learn how to speak with a client.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, obviously we are in a different situation because we have more international clients. So this barrier that we had with English, it became much larger because I kind of didn't know how to speak Polish in this interesting way about telling a story or something. And suddenly it'd be nice to learn this way in English as well. So I think that you may have a point, but maybe it's more about how our education in Poland is. Instead, I'm not too familiar with other countries in Europe, but I think that definitely Americans also tend to not take too much consideration into dates in history or something. It's more about what happened, why it happened, and how to avoid that or something. While we
Look how that's going.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that truly is how the system is built. Interesting. Okay, so putting it into work. So what would you suggest to both Americans and Europeans? Like, how can they learn from each other to be almost perfect in terms of communication, style of managing projects, in terms of digital marketing? So what we as Europeans can learn from Americans and what the opposite side may do as well.
Sure. So I also have a little note about that because that will be pretty difficult to come up with that like in the spur of the moment, or at least for me. So from the like more practical point of view, I think the Americans can learn from Europeans. Again, generalizing here, is that respect for not respect. Let's the understanding of the downtime that we may have X days of holidays, but maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe maybe you're doing something wrong, maybe you're doing something right. Yeah, like maybe it's not it's not the best case scenario to have like 10 days off in a year. So that would be that. And the second thing, which is a little bit more abstract, and I think that it's having a little bit of a distance to your business, to your product. And to give you an example, sort of to illustrate this a little bit better, is that what I noticed is that Americans tend to be a little bit more serious about their products, about their business,
brand,
about their brand. Yes, to a point sometimes that that may seem excessive to us, because like I remember one example of a client that was actually terminating a contract with us. And you could really feel like that person like really felt a strong connection to to the brand, to the product, and she was profusely thanking us for work on the project, and that's great, because it always felt good to be recognized for that and to feel appreciated. But I remember vividly that she said one thing, that, and I'm so grateful for your, all your help, to the brand of the company. And like, actually she cried a little in that moment. And like, this is pretty powerful, right? But, maybe I'm just, a heartless bastard when it comes to, but like for me, it's a little bit going a little bit too far, because at the end of the day, and maybe it's because, of course, there is this sort of imbalance because for them, this is their job, like for 40 plus hours a week. And for us, that's one of many clients, right? And you can have favorites, like, you can have favorites and then some that you prefer a little less. But I think it's pretty rare for us to have that sort of very like real visceral connection that goes so deep. But again, I do realize the fact that, it's the sort of the quantity is also different. But I think European clients do not have that to such a degree. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that we witness this on one of our US projects. We are doing ads for this client, but in terms of SEO, we wanted to build more content on this website. And to do that, we needed to change the structure of a certain pages a little bit. And suddenly it became a block that were not able to comprehend, because client was so eager to make it his way, instead of making maybe not artificial, but content that is not related to him personally and to his clients, that we were not able to adjust to his needs. Even though our ads copy and results from basically every activity was pretty good and is still very good, the SEO is paused until this point, because it was more important to maintain brand as it is and how it's from the client perspective, how it's seen, instead of making it somehow different, because we may change our nature by that. So it struck me basically, because for many Polish and European clients, it's just, okay, to achieve that goal, we need to change our website. We need to maybe change the style of communication, how our brand communicates. While at the US, even though it's basically starting from the scratch, from zero to infinity, still, it's not that relevant. It's more important about keeping the brand as it is. And it was like, wow, that actually was an important lesson for me as well.
So do you think that the clients in Europe are a little bit less, let's say, precious with their brand, like more willing to go to the extra mile, maybe experiment a little bit, risk it a little bit more?
Maybe it's just a part of the specific client. Maybe it was too, because it's a small business. It's basically run by him and several people that help him. So maybe it's just this point of his business journey, where he just does not feel safe to leave it to someone else. So maybe it's just a matter of this stage of the business where he's in. But on a general, again, perspective, I think that, yes, I think that Europeans tend to accept the fact that some things gotta change to get to this next stage, and are willing to make this, even though they may hurt something else. While Americans, from my perspective at least, brand is the most important thing. I think that us Europeans do not think about brand as something that is so crucial in marketing, as in business even, like brand awareness even. Like, who needs that? Results, sales, revenue, ROI, something like that. That's important. But getting familiar in our potential audience, who cares? How do you measure it?
We do.
Yeah,
we do.
Suddenly we do, right? Yeah. But I think that having this perspective from European and American clients as well help us learn that as well. So right now, me and you and our team also understands the importance of brand awareness and how brand is visible in the eyes of the potential client and end client, instead of just focusing on these simple metrics.
Yeah, and being really, really precious with it, right? And actually, I have an example, and I have an analogy, right? Yeah, because I actually have quite a few American clients who I could sort of put into that bucket, that they're really precious with their brand. And there's this one company with which we really tried to, again, inject some new blood into SEO and into the content on the site. And basically what I could equate it to is that they were selling, let's say, glasses, like, water glasses. And what we wanted to do is we want to say, target ads for people who are looking for cups.
Okay.
And say that, okay, what we are doing are not exactly cups, but you are looking for cups, and we can show you that glasses are actually better. And it makes a lot of sense for that client because cups are, would bring them a lot of traffic, but they are so fixated on the fact that they don't want to be even put in the same sentence with cups that it's a no-go. At least, like, no, it's out of the question, right? So,
yeah, I think that's how you do SEO in terms of content development, like topical authority, building it, and it's got to be built on some pillars of content. And suddenly, it might sound like a good idea to develop a pillar of like less connected to the product itself. But as you said, cups or something, mugs maybe even, sounds like a good one to explore. But no, it's definitely nothing what our brand does. And we do not want to be in this place and somehow we not even want to stay close to that. So that's, again, I usually hear complaints from our SEO team about that at this point, that why there's so much potential. Look, your competitors are also not doing that. There's so much to gain. No, out of the question.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like I said, it's a fixation on the differences, like, because, of course I do see the differences as well. The material is different and you have a handle, right?
Yeah.
But still, it's
different experience.
It's a different experience, but it's a water container, like a liquid container, right? Yeah. That you put to your mouth and drink with it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Exactly. And it's not even, because maybe we are thinking about it in a more practical way, is that, it's not even about like all the aspects that we mentioned, but it's like people are searching for this, and you can show them that when you are searching for this might be a good idea. And it's just this thing, but they're sometimes so precious with that they're not willing to budge in that direction, right?
Precisely. Okay.
But sorry to tell you.
Go on.
But I did speak about what Europeans can bring over to America, but we didn't talk about the other way around, right?
Yeah.
So what I think Europeans might learn from the Americans is, it might go a little bit into a different direction from what we were talking about right now. So maybe with the exception of some of the brand considerations that we mentioned, and that is the willing to innovate and the flexibility to work and pivot sometimes when that's needed, right? And again, both these things can be exaggerated up to a point that they stop being practical or that they actually become detrimental. But to a certain degree, I think they can be very beneficial to like have this mindset. Again, maybe it sort of goes back to that Silicon Valley effect, let's say, that you want to innovate, right? That you want to stay ahead of the curve, not behind it.
I think there's also a thing about European Union making so many regulations that it is sometimes companies are unable to make innovations and new solutions because there are so many regulations that make you less cost effective. So it's easier for us to use American software because it's available. It's much more ahead compared with what we have what we have to deal with. So maybe that's also in the equation.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure it is. But, we may talk about long-term aspects of that. And
politics.
Yeah, and politics, right? Yeah. So that's a totally different conversation, right? So stay tuned for the 12-hour version of this interview, right? But I don't think we need to go there. And the second thing is like this flexibility. And again, it might be contorted into a monster of itself when it's exaggerated too much. but like this ability to pivot sometimes and say that, okay, so this thing didn't work, or it didn't work as well as we had hoped, so we should go in a different direction. And I think that Americans are a little bit, again, generalizing, are a little bit better about this aspect.
So taking more risks even.
Yeah.
Even though it may not be something that we know of. So if it fits the story, then it's good. Okay. So right now, I think we can move to the second stage of our interview, of our talk, about project management itself instead of these differences. And we start off with a call to action segment, which is the question from audience, one specific question that I've chosen to you. And it's actually coming from Marta, our first guest of
Hello.
Let's Talk Digital. Hello, Marta. So she's asking about your perspective about what to do in situations when clients want more and more and more, and you simply have no capacity or assets to deal with that. So how do you, as a project manager, maybe set up rules, or what's the solution to that?
Oh, that's a huge question. And I think that it does not only work for the other side of the Atlantic, but it also does apply everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I hate to say it, because like this, again, it depends, right? Yes, so it's the first time. For the first time, we're saying it. Yeah. It depends, and I think it depends on a lot of factors. Like, first of all, how important is that relationship to like the company at large, right? And where are we at what stage in the relationship? Because if it's like really close to the beginning, then of course I think there's a little bit more leeway, right? Because you want to prove that you were a good partner and that you will deliver on what is required, let's say. But then again, there's setting boundaries here as well. This path is not linear, let's say, because it also depends on the fact that what's your performance, how it's been up to that point. Because of course, like, we want to think and say that, we always do a great job, but we are all human, and sometimes mistakes do happen, right? So after an egregious screw up, then you would be less inclined to set like really hard boundaries and say, no, we cannot do this, because you want to sort of make a better impression, right?
Yeah.
So it does depend on quite a few factors, I would say. And again, it also depends on what's the scope of the ask, of the request, and whether or not it is in the statement of work that we sign with that particular client. So if that service is included in there, but maybe sort of broadens the scope a little bit, then, we can talk about it. If it's like completely outside of it, then again, we can also talk about it, because like in the modern world of like doing sales as well, you sometimes have to give a little bit in order to get a little bit after that, right? So maybe, we can do that particular thing as a sort of, proof of concept we can do, and then we can talk about upselling that, or, cross-selling that. So I hate to say it, but it really depends, right? But I think the most important factor here is like the relationship. If this particular client is like a special snowflake in your, in your portfolio of clients, then maybe you are willing to budge a little bit more. But there's always the question of like setting a precedent and not wanting to give too much, right? And set boundaries, like, because, nobody wants to work for free. And sometimes, it might turn out to be a recurring thing, right? Because when we also say this, right? That, you give them a finger and they want to take the whole hand, right?
Exactly.
But at the same time, I don't think that these sort of pathological, let's say, outcomes are a staple of American clients. They also happen in Europe as well. That, sometimes they want to, bleed you dry a little bit. So I don't think that's something specific to that side of the ocean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually a very complex question. I don't think that there is a one answer, but maybe in this version of 12 hours interview, you may find the answer. We'll eventually post it on YouTube, maybe. Okay, thank you. That was a call to action. It'll change the direction in this interview with you. What tips would you have as an experienced project manager for someone that learns the art of managing project, about because many people, even from our team, it was a regular thing back in the day. We are scared to go international and to speak English, even though it's something that you don't need too much experience with. You just need to do that very often. But what tips would you have to more people that are challenged this way to have these projects? Should we be scared? Or what to do to make preparations to actually do something that will improve ourselves in this area?
Sure. Yeah, I love that question. So should you be scared? It can be stressful. It can be scary at times. But that may be a larger life tip. But I think that fear is always a good motivator to act and not to not act. Because at the end of the day, you might see that my fear has made me not do something that I wanted to do, or I felt that I maybe should do or could do, but I didn't do that because of fear. But at the same time, you can use it in this a more positive way and do it because of the fear to sort of overcome it. And I think that's a really good thing to do for your character, let's say, especially if you have that ambition. But at the same time, it will not always be all sunshine and rainbows. You will trip, you will fail, but the only people who, and again, that's a quote, I don't know who said that, but the only people who don't fail are the people who don't do anything, right? So you have to be open to that, and you learn a lot from your mistakes. At least I think you should, with some level of self-reflection. So going to a more practical direction, because you also asked what we can do, and I will come back a little bit to what we spoke about, the differences in education. And this is something that I did recommend to a couple of people who came to me and said, Radek, I'm stressed on client calls. I don't feel super comfortable speaking English, especially more abstract conversations. What can I do to improve that? And sadly, the answer is on the one hand simple, but on the other hand, it really requires you to put some effort into it, right? Because even us right here, right now, we speak in our non-native language, but it's not something that we turned on overnight. I'm sure that you also learned for years and years to get to that point.
That's just like a muscle, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. So it does require effort, but it's not super hard. That's the best thing in my opinion. And what I would recommend is to write short speeches and start with really simple topics. For example, your hobbies, right? With I don't know, your favorite TV show, and saying why do you like it, for example, and start with a full paragraph written out, and then that might sound cringy, but it's best to speak to a mirror, and it's super best to record yourself with audio and video. That would be super, super, super best. That's the best case scenario you can do, and that will bring you the most progress. And you're cringe AF, especially watching that back the first couple of times. But once you get more feeling more natural with it, and you sort of see, for example, okay, so for example, for maybe I smack my lips too much, or maybe I do too much of or something, right? But you will recognize these things, or maybe you will see that you say a lot of stuff like that or something, right? Even I did that this time. So you will feel self-conscious like hell, but it's best to feel self-conscious with yourself in front of a mirror or like watching a video of yourself instead of having that on a call, right? So it sort of prepares you for that. And to give yourself a little bit more of a challenge and to sort of, go to that point is to progressively making the topics more difficult, the speeches longer, and having your notes be more and more sparse so that, and again, progressively getting there gradually. So the end goal here is that at the end of that exercise, you have a pretty long speech about complicated topics, work related, that can be a little bit abstract. And you just have a list of notes, like bullet points, and you can speak freely about it, argue it, with confidence. And it also, looks and sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have that sort of preparation done, then it's way easier to then go on a call and try that in practice, in the real world, like with other people.
Okay. Based on your education and your degree, I think you might be a great coach to learn a few things from.
Yeah, because like with two final years of my study was conference interpreting, so oral translation and like speaking to huge numbers of people, and like also like being really conscious about like smacking your lips or doing uhs and all of that. Like also when you do a lot of gestures, how do you do that? So it is. Someone might look at it as like a really ancillary thing, a secondary thing to do. But, and of course, up to a point it is, but it really goes a long way when you, maybe not even for the other side, but when you are confident in this aspect that, I did put in the work and I see my progress and I know that I am better, I feel more confident, right? Mm-hmm. And I know that I go to that call and I am prepared better and I'm not so self-conscious, right?
Yeah, that's actually amazing how, I recently found my old videos that I was recording to my clients. I was unprofessional in terms of even the equipment, but it's not about that. It's also about words and vocabulary, like what sort of narrative I had.
In Polish or in English?
In English. And the same goes with the rest of our team. Like I remember people nervous on our recruitment process or something. Even myself, while I was recruited to MTA, Rado asked me about how to improve quality score for a Google Ads client from this industry. Like, what would you do? Like, man, I was not able to speak about my favorite food in English, and he was asking me about the quality score, and it was terrible. But it took a year, and there was COVID, by the way. So more async communication as well. And it sounded more natural. And the same goes with others. Like you just gotta do it like Nike. Just do it.
Exactly.
But my question to you is, did you even hear negative feedback from a native speaker that someone, perhaps not you, from our team was not good with his English communication? And did you actually agreed with that? Like, did you think that it was actually true that someone is not able to communicate well in English and it was a problem? Or was it exaggerating?
Yes and yes. And no. That's it. No.
It depends.
Yeah. Yes. So I did hear that. Yes, I did hear that sort of feedback, and it always sucks to hear it, right? Because it's looking at our work in a negative way, right? But yes, to the second question, that I had to agree. Mm-hmm. In some cases, because it also like depends on what kind of feedback it is. Because you can say, I don't like that person, just because. You can say, I don't like the way they speak. And like that,
but
and
that's not relevant to the language you're speaking, but it's about the like vibe with someone.
Yeah, maybe, but yeah. But at the same time, when you have when they follow it up with I don't understand what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and maybe it's not even about the accent or the vocabulary or the grammar, but it's more about like the way you formulate your thoughts and the way that you sort of go through the motions without really like knowing what's the cause and effect relationship between everything. And I cannot really argue with that, right? I cannot say, yeah, maybe something, blah, blah. No, because like what we need to do is like, we always need to communicate our ideas in a clear way in order to, because like communication goes both ways. You decode it on the other end and you need to understand it. Right. And when you don't have that comprehension, then, everything goes to crap.
Mm-hmm.
Really. You can't really go past that. So, and like I said, you can't argue with it, because if someone tells you, okay, I understand you, I understand that person, but that person, I just don't know what they're on about. I don't understand what they're saying. So you can't really argue with that. And what you have to do in that case is that this burden of communicating that specific aspect, that piece of the puzzle, needs to go to a different person.
Okay. So
that's it. And of course there is room to speak with someone and say, okay, we did get that feedback. So at this point in time, we need to shift gears a little bit, but we can always go back, but then there needs to be improvement in communication, right? And to go a little bit back to what we talked about a minute ago, what sucks about it is that it also requires effort. And that is, it might be a little bit more like an abstract thing, because to be a better specialist at, setting up campaigns or reporting better, it's more like a hard skill. And you can have like a list of things that you want to go through or things that you want to learn or improve about yourself. But when it's about communication, that's a little bit more abstract. So it's a little bit more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So what about other tips that you can think of? Like, you, in other, questions, you said about the agenda and how it's supposed to look like, differently than we actually do in Europe. But also this narrative, this storytelling, these are the things about the communication itself. But I don't know, maybe how to adjust to other things, like maybe time zone, maybe how do you actually, cope with that? Because I remember you saying back in the day when you were recruited that you disliked these hour of work. Like East Coast is not that bad in terms of the United States, but you're currently working with some West Coast clients. So how do you actually comprehend with that?
Sure. So I did work for 5 years on the, let's say, East Coast shift for 4 years. Mm-hmm. And that was from 3 p.m. till 11 p.m. Day in, day out, Monday to Friday, right? So it was okay for some time, but after some time it sucked. And I decided that I really need to change that. When it comes to how I'm dealing with that right now is that you can always work with your clients and shuffle things around. Because sometimes I think we are too afraid to ask and saying, because we have that fear that, we are speaking a different language as our first language, and it's a different time zone. So we don't want to be this source of inconvenience. But at the same time, if performance comes with it and the results are good and the working relationship is good, they will give you that if they can. That's a given. So what I do is like I try to shuffle the meetings as best as I can in order to have them, for example, in one day, so that if I have to have a day where, for example, I end my last meeting at 7 p.m., then I will try to have that, 1 day or 2 days and not being that the whole week. And actually I managed to do that pretty well. So
it works.
Yeah, it works. Yeah. It's, of course it depends. Again, it depends. It depends on the situation, on the clients, and how many of them you have and how many meetings you need to have. But, if it's not like 10 meetings in a week, then you can shuffle them around a bit and you can always ask, could we shift it here? Could we shift it an hour later or sooner?
So be transparent about what you actually think, and do not take something as a must in terms of like this communication style. I also tend to think that we are leaning towards being somehow like dependent on the other side of the client side, and are afraid to simply ask for something that is more about us instead of them. And then what I'm seeing is signs of the burnout, because someone is not able to deal with these things. So that's actually a very healthy point, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's always a conversation goes a long way. And, they are all people as well, like us, right? And we can differ in culture, in status, in wealth, whatever. But everyone wants to have some free time, and everyone wants to live and have fun, right? Well, yeah, let's not go dark.
We'll cut it.
Yeah. So everyone wants that, and we can extend our hand in that way, saying, could we do that? It's always possible to shuffle things around a bit.
Okay. If you will think about extra tips beside that, then feel free to share. But there was also one question coming from our team, but this is a question that you already know of, and you mentioned it before. It's about differences between the actual work of agencies. I don't know why, but there's this thinking that American agencies tend to do better work. You don't sound too convinced about that. So what do you think about that? Should we be feeling worse about that?
Okay, so a little bit of a disclaimer.
This is generalization.
No, not this time. This time.
Okay.
Is that like the nature of force of nature? The nature of what we do is that it sort of by definition puts us in a position that is a little bit, I don't want to say antagonistic, but sort of puts us in this weird relationship with other agencies, is that most of the time we come in to tidy up or to fix things. So it very rarely happens that we sort of start with like a new startup and like we build their marketing from scratch, or that we just replace an internal team who was doing great, and then we go in. So most of the time we are the cleaners. So we come in when something is broken. So that sort of makes it my pool of examples.
Your perspective is skewed.
Exactly. My perspective is a little bit skewed. However, and again, we did meet some agencies or like some internal teams that were really capable. So it's not all bad. But one thing that sort of that I've seen a number of times is that a lot of these agencies, they really like to put a little glitter on things, on their actions with communication. And that's sort of this slider that I mentioned, right? So between acting and talking about acting, and their slider might be way into this direction, to speaking beautifully about everything, but not a lot of concrete actions and the results come out of that. So this is something that I've seen a lot, is that you go on a call and you have a person or people who are speaking, great, I couldn't speak with that level of storytelling. It's awesome, right? The presentation is beautiful. All the charts are green, and all the arrows point upwards, and it's all, it's amazing. But then we have our team going into the accounts, and it's, because you can always paint the grass green. You can always, if you're good with data, you can almost always find indicators that go up. You can always find charts that look nice. You can always find that. You can always manipulate it to a certain degree. We don't do that.
Serious?
But what I saw is that a lot of these agencies tend to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a different thing from what we have here in Europe, in Poland. It's actually pretty much the same story. And I think that's the main reason why agencies have so bad PR, because there's this again, this is being general in terms of this topic, but companies tend to choose freelancers instead of agencies, even though they mutually have better know-how about things and the whole strategy, because they are not achieving these results, and they are, as you said, painting grass green, because like we don't want to lose client. Like our margin is the number one priority, but still, how do you differ the good agency in terms of like you said, we are not like that. So what do you actually do to convince client that you are the good agency compared to the others?
I have this no BS policy. Mm-hmm. Is that, it might lose us some leads, possibly, but I'm in work, in relationships, in friendships, whatever. I think that it doesn't pay to lie or paint yourself in a different, more favorable view, because sooner or later it will just, it will come out and be ugly, right? So when there's a situation where, for example, there is an expectation on the client side to do something a certain way or to achieve a certain goal in a specific time period, and we see that this is just simply not feasible, it's always good to say that. And that's the first thing. And the second thing is like even challenging their goals and challenging their ideas. And for example, the example that I gave, like how do we 10x our revenue in the next 6 months or whatever, they actually appreciate that. They actually appreciate the pushback, because like there's another tip here is that Americans are a nation of extroverts. Again, generalization. But what we spoke about education and speeches, public speaking, and all of that, is that they are pretty confident as like sort of like a baseline generalization. But at the same time, they recognize that in you and they appreciate that. So it really, really does pay to like exude that confidence and show it, right? In first of all, in arguing for our actions, efforts, and also like pushing back or something that you don't think are the best course of action. And they will appreciate that most of the time.
I'd say that this is a very general tip, no matter what country are you dealing with. Yeah, that's actually a good one. Okay. But besides the expectancies and storytelling in terms of the US agencies, would you say that they have a different style of work in terms of like experiments or maybe tools that they're using? Because from my experience, by the way, I see that we do not tend to use so many new tools in advertising, while Americans love them. There are so many of them on this market that you basically cannot escape from using one. So this is one difference that I find, but maybe you have something else.
It's true. It's true. I agree. But like this also opens another can of worms and another discussion, right? Because I think that might be a good thing, because like there are tools that may help you and like give you a better view of everything. But at the same time, a lot of them are snake oil and just, you shouldn't bother. So it's what really is important is, again, having that confidence and sometimes the ability to push back and saying that, I don't think we should be spending that much on that because that doesn't bring us that much value. Yeah. So choosing that. And, it largely depends. Because there are agencies who, like you say, love all those shiny things. Because again, that may be a tool of communication and sort of obfuscating things, like putting a little bit of smoke and mirrors and saying, oh, there's a nice chart from Nordbeam, or that's a nice chart from Triple Whale, or, whatever tool you want to insert there. But like the question is, what does it bring to the table? What kind of new insight is possible with that? But there are agencies on the other side of the ocean that don't do that. So it's again, it's an entire spectrum of that.
So basically, if someone is feeling worse compared to the US, they shouldn't be, because this is basically the same thing that we're doing in the European market. Yes,
and I'm a huge believer of that, because first of all, I don't think we should have this inferiority complex about anything, but like I've actually seen it working, and that we have very, very capable people. We have really smart people, and like comparing with some, they can go toe to toe with experts that from America. And we even have a couple of situations where we were right and they were wrong. So I think it all comes from, first of all, experience, and second of all, from being smart about what you're doing and drawing conclusions. And I think that Americans are not better equipped at any of this, like from the get-go as a baseline. As I think it just comes from character, like individual character. So I think that you can have amazing specialists here and there. And I've seen it happen. So if you know that you are doing a good job, then you are, and you shouldn't feel inferior just because it's Americans on the other side of the plateau.
Exactly. No matter who you're talking to, you should be vocal about your success and your results, if they're okay. And even if they're not okay, you should still be able to speak about that. I personally think that this is a general thing, and this is like coming from my mind, but I'm thinking that most of us tend to do like 80% of what we do is getting results done. Like we are there, this is a major success, but the rest 20% is us communicating it. So we are lacking this communication skill. And to
the slider, yeah,
precisely. Whilst you may do the opposite and do only 20% in terms of delivering results, but you are so awesome about speaking about them that someone actually chooses the second agency person, freelancer, whatever, because it's more about how you speak about that, what you're doing actually, instead of what you're delivering. At least up to the point when someone like Force of Nature team comes and do the tidying up.
Yeah, well, it's a difficult situation a little bit because, like you said, you can shift that weight on the slider to more into communication, and that may make a good impression at first, especially like in sales, right? When you have all the nice charts and all the beautiful things and everything, and the nice speaking, and you say that, we will do everything, right? We'll fix everything in a month. And then you have us who say that, okay, they will take 6 months, and it might work beautifully or not, but we won't BS you. So first of all, you have at the get-go, you are sort of at a lower position, let's say, from, it depends on your perspective, right? But you are not promising, everything that they want. And some people like that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the truth is in the pudding at the end of the day. And with these promises or these, or what we are saying that we will do, sometimes it sort of comes in 6 months, in a year, right? So it's you have to sign up for a longer engagement to sort of see if your investment really pays off. So.
Yeah. Okay, we'll probably wrap things up. Maybe we'll talk more in this 12-hour episode. But last question from my side is about your biggest challenge at work, preferably about project management itself. Like, what was that? What you have an opportunity to make a story about that? Maybe some analogies as well.
Yeah.
Maybe something that depends. Who knows?
You're right. Okay. Yeah. Story. So once upon a time, it was a client that was like really, really fresh for us. It was the beginning of the engagement, and it was because. And I think it's true, like for the entirety of the MTA, that we feel really comfortable in commerce, but maybe not necessarily as comfortable. But this is changing. Like we have a pretty good app wing, for example, right? And we will take SCSs too. But if I were to sort of make like a chart to like say, what's the order there, I would say e-commerce is like the thing that we are most comfortable with. And that wasn't an e-commerce business. And from the very beginning, it was pretty rocky because, again, we were the fixers because stuff was broken heavily. And the client's high season was approaching really, really fast. And the very big problem with it was also that analytics were broken. And we needed to fix that too, in order for anything else to work. And the time pressure was exaggerated by the fact that some of the stuff was also being done by an external agency, not by us, especially. Like because in order to deliver to the level that we wanted to and that was required, we needed to hire an external muscle because we didn't have that level of expertise at that point in time. So that throws another spanner in the works because with an internal team, as a project manager, you have a lot more tools, I think, and the relationship is closer. So it's sometimes it's way easier to get things done. But with external partners, you have that another layer of separation, let's say, right? Yeah, one more handshake away, right, from Kevin Bacon. So that was a difficult situation on a number of levels. And like I said, the pressure to deliver because of things being broken for quite some time, the high season approaching, and all of that, made it really stressful. And again, external team, again, a lot of things that were sort of not going our way at that time. So to maybe go to a more positive direction and say, how we can deal with that, because I think, it's sort of makes most sense to say what you can do in that situation. So with external partners, it's really important to set deadlines then, and actually have them deliver that deadlines, like keep them accountable to them, right? So when something's not working, then at that time, like really go after it and try and have as frequent communication as you can, because sometimes it's just to sort of break that level of separation. Try and do that because when you acclimate them to the fact that you don't really speak that much, then they get used to it. Really, yeah. So try to maybe like a little bit artificially like shorten that distance. So that's one thing. And the second thing is, especially if things are really difficult, and as a project manager, you sort of have all these different balls to juggle, right? And all these different branches, and you cannot be an expert in all of these, right? You cannot be super knowledgeable about PPC and analytics and SEO and everything, unless, maybe there are some polymaths like this. I am not one of them. So you have to, if you have to go on a call, for example, and speak about things that you are not the expert on, sometimes you do, then it's really important to have a really good team supporting you and being like really direct with them. Okay, so I need this from you in order to make us all look better, right? So could you explain this to me? And and like being really honest and saying that, for example, you need a extra clarification.
I would actually call it a good stress management tool.
Yeah.
or a process, actually, because if you're a project manager, that's basically a role that is the most stressful probably on a regular basis in the project. If you will not communicate well with your team about what you don't know, it will put you into more stress during the call with your client. And based on this stress, you'll also make more stressful internal team, because you just direct it this way, because there's no other way to make it. So without honesty inside of your team, you actually need to, maybe you don't need to have the entire knowledge about how everything works, but you need to know about how it works on a foundation level, at least. So I strongly agree with that, because that's, I was actually saying about, I intended to say it about this case of yours, because it sounded like the stress level was at the peak probably at this period.
Yes, it was. And because, it's maybe not 100% case of honesty, but sometimes like, okay, so maybe honesty with yourself, because sometimes like we don't like to say, I don't understand something. Could you repeat that? Because like we don't want to look stupid or inconvenience someone that they should explain it something.
I should know that. So
yeah, exactly. But then it comes back to haunt you, twofold. And by the way, this is a pretty interesting thing, in talking about differences in language. Ignorance in English is a neutral word. It's not a negative word. And I think that in Polish, we sort of treat it with way more negative connotations, like, like you're ignorant. But in English, it's pretty much neutral. So especially if you have to show your ignorance, again, neutral, in a given situation, it's always best to be exposed in this way with your internal team, not your external team. So you can bet on it. You can gamble that, let's maybe not discuss it. We'll see if it pops up during the external call, but then it does sometimes. And then, you lose that bet. So it's always best, I think, to address that in the internal environment. And to that point, what we do sometimes, especially before most stressful situations and most difficult calls, is to sort of workshop the situation beforehand, and like maybe have like a mock call, and even speaking English amongst all Polish speakers, and try to sort of get that narration down. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is to be very critical of your teammates, maybe not of your teammates, of their narrative and what they are saying. And again, critical as a neutral word, not as a negative word, just being objective about it. And because it's not about, demeaning something or like being mean. It's not about,
and still it doesn't mean that you're not doing the good work. It's about how do I need to communicate it later with the client.
Yes.
And I predict things that they will ask me.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's not like being a judge on America's Got Talent or something, right? You shouldn't sing ever. It's not that. It's like basically saying, okay, I didn't really get that point. Could you like rephrase it or like, do it differently? And then what also you mentioned is that trying to predict what might come up, because especially if the relationship is longer and you've worked with that client for a couple of months, or a couple of years, then you can really predict.
Yeah, you know them already.
You know them, yeah, and you know that, okay, they won't like that number, and we can workshop it right now and have arguments, why this is happening, or why it looks like this, and then be prepared for that beforehand instead of getting caught on the call with your pants down.
I gotta ask the team.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, and again, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Because
you won't avoid it. Eventually it will come up, because you don't need to know everything, but you should be prepared for the most common questions.
Yes, And it really pays to be prepared even for the less common questions. Yeah, because we try to do that pretty regularly to like have this we speak internally about, you know, what we're going to talk about, and then we pick holes in that, right? Saying, okay, I think that this isn't explained in the best way, or we didn't address that, you know. So and if I listen to that as a client, I would have extra thoughts on this point, or I would like need a more clarification on that point, and just go through it, right? It's never a waste of time. Even if those questions do not come up, then
you just exercise.
You exercise that muscle, right? So I think that's like, I think one of the game changers, I would say, that we did in management of projects in this way.
So how did you deal with this situation eventually about this client?
So like I said, by speaking with the external team, trying to get them more accountable. And yeah, I didn't mention one thing yet, because like to exacerbate the situation even more, is that at that point in time, I said a lot of time pressure. We got hit by a couple of sick leaves and like paid time off, and on that side as well, right? So it was really a nightmare to sort of juggle all of that and all of those people and all the calendars and everything, all the meetings and expectations. So at the end of the day, like this better preparation to all the calls and being sure that, you know, we come with a good story. And especially when you do it for quite some time, you can have that spidey sense, let's say, that will tell you, I don't think we are super prepared. Because you can put a lot of points in the agenda, and you can, you know, have a couple of figures and everything. But especially when we're talking about all the things that we've been talking about, like, you know, having a larger narrative, storytelling, all of that, and also connecting that to that larger goal. If you don't have any of that and you look at it and say, I don't think this will stick, and then you go on that call and it really doesn't freaking stick. Yeah. Speaking from experience. So, again, it's always better to workshop that things before. And it's always better to tell that to the team and saying that, you know, I don't think we are prepared enough for this call. Could you give me a little bit more in this aspect or in this aspect, right?
Great stuff.
So this is pretty much what we did, and it did turn out well. Yeah.
Great to hear that. I think we'll end this episode with this optimistic note. Thank you for being here with me.
Thank you.
It was, I think, by far the longest episode.
Sorry.
That's actually good. So we'll see about that, but thank you again.
Thank you.
And thank you for all of you for watching us today, and see you in our next episode.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.